Hey guys, I'm Mark McKillier with LiveAnabolic.com, and tonight I want to talk to you about 3 ways to increase your stamina. Now guys, stamina is basically defined as the strength and energy needed to sustain physical activity for long periods of time. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? Well, guess what guys? There's lots of different ways that we can increase our stamina, but first, I want to explain the fact that your stamina really is very sport specific. So it depends on whether you want to increase your stamina in running, okay, or weightlifting in the gym, or boxing, or grappling on the ground in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or swimming. Man, it's just amazing how little crossover there is when we develop stamina in one particular sport. Let me give you some examples. And these examples come from people that I know and also my personal experience. So I've been hitting the gym for 37 years. So I actually have really good stamina when it comes to lifting weights, okay? But I went and started taking some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes. So I'm in a full gi, down on the ground, rolling around, wrestling with these guys. Well, guess what? In about 60 seconds, I'm totally gassed, out of breath. And I got some chubby, out of shape guy on top of me who's not even breathing hard, okay? And I'm joking with him afterwards. Of course, he's been doing this for years. I'm like, you know, what in the world is going on here? And he laughs. He goes, Mark, trust me, if I try to go out to the track and run a quarter mile or a mile with you, you would just blow me away. I'd be just gassed. I wouldn't be able to breathe. So he has developed stamina in his sport. Same thing, you take a runner, okay? And I've seen this before. One of my good friends was running marathons. I mean, he was fast at doing marathons. He was running 3-hour marathons. We got in a pool, an Olympic-sized pool, and started trying to swim laps. One lap, one 50-meter lap, just gassed. He couldn't breathe. It was really funny. And the same thing happened with me. So guys, as you can see, it's good to develop stamina, and I promise there is some crossover benefit when you're talking about different sports, but it's not as much as you might think. So for instance, I've been trying to increase my stamina in running, and I've been working on it for a couple of years, and I'm not progressing much, okay? So I started trying to swim, okay, and that kicked my butt, but it didn't really help my running at all, okay? So it's very quirky, and so you guys need to figure out what exactly you want to do and why do you want to increase your stamina. So let me talk about 3 different ways to do it, and these pretty much apply to whatever sport or activity that you're talking about. The first one is basically you need to reduce your recovery time in between exercises. And so let me give you some examples. So when you're working out in the gym lifting weights, so we do a set. Okay, I don't care whether it's incline dumbbell presses, okay, you got to stop and rest after you do a set of say 10 reps. Well, that length of time that you rest before you do the next set, okay, is the recovery time I'm talking about. So if you want to build stamina, you're going to really squeeze that recovery down from say 90 seconds to 60 seconds. And then after a few weeks of that, when you start to feel comfortable, maybe down to 45 seconds. And then also, I make use of this technique in my Fit After 50 program. So for you guys out there who've already bought the program, you'll probably understand what I'm talking about. But in phase 1 of my program, I use a lot of circuit training. And circuit training is where you go from one exercise to the next with almost no rest. And you perform several different exercises in a circuit. You know, there might be 5 or 6 exercises with no rest between them. And then at the end of one circuit is when you stop and catch your breath for a minute or 2. And then you repeat that. Well, that is a way to increase your stamina, especially for beginners. And that's why I use it in the first phase of my workout program. So there is reducing the recovery time, okay, in between exercise, but also typically when you do that, you reduce the resistance. And let me stick with weights for just a minute here. So if you don't want to rest very long between sets, all right, you're going to get fatigued real fast if you're lifting a heavy weight and you do 10 reps the first set. If you only rest, say, 15, 20 seconds and then do another set, you're only going to be able to knock out 4 reps, 5 reps max. So you have to reduce the weight, all right? So basically, that is a real clever way of increasing your stamina if you want to do it as far as lifting weights, if that is your goal. Now let's say you want to increase your stamina running, okay? Something I've been doing lately is trying to build up my 1 mile personal record, okay? So it's not a real long distance, okay? But still, running a mile hard is kicking my butt. And one of the techniques I'm using is running quarter miles, okay? So I run them pretty hard, and then I rest a couple of minutes, okay? And then I run another quarter mile and rest a couple of minutes, all right? Well, so my goal is to keep running those quarter miles relatively hard, fast. I mean, I'm gassed, I'm out of breath, okay? But I'm gonna reduce my recovery time from 2 minutes down to say 90 seconds, and then eventually to 60 seconds, okay? And that technique is gonna help me increase my stamina, which will improve my 1 mile personal best time. All right, let me move on to the second technique for increasing your stamina. And that is basically just increasing the intensity of whatever you're doing. So let me give you some examples, okay? Let's go with weights first. So when I talk about increased intensity in the weight room, okay, or even at home working out, I'm talking about pushing yourself harder, pushing yourself sometimes to failure on a given set. So when I tell you I want you to do 12 reps, okay, and you pick a weight and you knock out 12 reps and you stop and you're just kind of going, all right, well, that wasn't so hard. That's telling me that you weren't pushing yourself hard enough, and there was basically very little intensity in that set. So you need to pick a weight, okay, if you're really trying to push yourself to failure, so that when you get to that 12th rep, basically you can't do another one. If I was sitting there with a gun to your head, there's no way you could push out one more rep. You couldn't do 13. You absolutely just failed on the last rep, which was number 12. That way you have to pick a heavy weight, guys. All right, so that is intensity when it comes to weightlifting. Now, same thing applies to running or swimming or rolling, and grappling in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. All right, so if you're running, you just increase the intensity, which means basically that you're running harder, you're running faster. Okay, you're employing advanced techniques, okay, which is stuff like tempo runs and interval runs and sprinting and stuff like that, okay? So you're really pushing yourself so that you're just totally out of breath, you're gassed, you've gone past the aerobic capability of your body, and now you're in the anaerobic realm, okay? And that doesn't last very long. That's the intensity I'm talking about. And the same thing, those advanced techniques apply to weightlifting too, all right? So it's not just pushing yourself to failure, but it's also employing more difficult techniques like drop sets and supersets and rest pause sets, okay? Those are all advanced techniques that you can use when you're in the gym or at home working out with resistance bands and dumbbells to increase your stamina. All right, guys, final technique here is number 3, and that is increase the frequency and the duration of whatever you're doing. So let me talk about the different ways you can do that in different types of sports. So, of course, lifting weights is really what my specialty is, okay? And I am a big believer in weight training for guys, especially as we get older. It's even more important as you get older, guys. And when I talk about increasing frequency and duration, meaning in my Fit After 50 program, as an example, I have you guys lift weights 3 days a week in phase 1, okay? Only 3 days a week. Now, when we move on to phase 2 and phase 3, I have you lifting weights 5 times a week. Matter of fact, in phase 4, which is for the guys that really want to push themselves, it's an add-on, I have you training 6 days a week with resistance. So that's what I'm talking about, increasing the frequency. And then the duration basically is how long do your workouts take. So instead of just doing, say, 12 sets total, you end up pushing it to 15, 18 sets. So the actual length of the workout takes, an hour instead of 45 minutes maybe. And you're doing it 4 or 5 times a week instead of just 3 times a week. Same thing, real simple when you're talking about running. So guys, that's what I'm working on right now, and I'm not very good at it. So I'm trying to increase the frequency. I'm trying to run 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week as my legs start to get kind of used to it, okay? Trying to get back in the swing after an injury and a long layoff. So guys, I'm going to run more often, and then my runs that I go on become longer and longer. And it doesn't mean I necessarily run 5 miles instead of 2. It might mean that I run 6 quarter miles instead of 4, and then a 1.5 mile run on top of that instead of a mile run. Okay, so just that duration of the run is longer, and then of course I'm doing it more times per week. So guys, those are the 3 different techniques for increasing your stamina, and those techniques apply to pretty much any sport or activity. But remember guys, just because you gain a lot of stamina in one sport doesn't mean all of that's going to transform and show up in a completely different sport. It just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. All right guys, hopefully you got a lot out of this video tonight. Gary and I are doing tons of really cool, interesting videos. We're always updating our YouTube channel, so you got to be sure and subscribe. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on some of these really great videos. And then share this with some of your buddies. I guarantee you have a ton of friends that need to hear this, okay? Give us a little thumbs up, like, okay? And then finally, guys, come on. This stamina thing ain't going to happen overnight. You have to always stick with it and never give up on yourself.